Look how beautiful she is. Okay. All right. Michelle Parker. She is a licensed independent clinical social worker with over 10 years of experience working with clients from all walks of life and helping them navigate through life's challenges. Michelle has a background in psychology and counseling, which allows her to provide a holistic approach to counseling. In the chat, you will find her website. You'll also see her podcast episode that she completed with me. Her talk today is Creating a Purposeful Life. And because she's one of our sponsors, she gets 45 minutes of speaking time. Michelle, do you need me to run your slides today?
No. I'll probably be using my slides for myself, but I did create half of my slides in the download. You can download them on the Summit site for anyone who wants to have them. So
Beautiful.
first, I'm going to let you know. So my name is Michelle Parker. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm licensed in 5 states. I'm actively licensed in 4 states. I'm licensed in South Carolina, where I currently reside, Virginia, Texas, Washington, and Oregon. I'm in process. So when I think about my credentials as a social worker, it's different because I went to school after high school to be in creative arts. And I did that for about 10 years. And then I went back to school to become a social worker. I went back to school for psychology and then I transferred to be a social worker because I found in my daily life, I had so many people that were coming to me with challenges. And then I was also volunteering at a rape crisis center. So I wanted to go back and get a better education and help more people. So in that process, I have been independently licensed for over 10 years, but I started the going to school in 2004. So I've been doing this for over 20 years, but there's a so I am also a complex trauma survivor. I had a lot of challenges and traumatic experiences as a kid. So part of that is when you're healing, that process will tell you like you're not good enough for this. So I'll own this today. I am been a social worker for 22 years, and I my discovered my purpose along the way. I would really say over the last 5 years as I worked through the pandemic and as a clinical social worker and found other areas where that really was my growth. So today, that's my credentials, not just a clinical social worker. I'm also a complex trauma survivor. In my practice, I work primarily with women and men who are trauma survivors and working towards helping rebuild themselves so that they can be better for their families. Let's see. So there is that. And then the other thing I wanted to let you guys know, I'm working on my talk is called Creating a Purposeful Life. And during the pandemic, I really started looking at different ways to express myself because as a trauma survivor, and many of you probably experience this too, I sometimes do not have any language to be able to tell you how what I'm experiencing. So I will use creative outlets. Prior to this, I mostly worked in facilities, and then now I've been working online. So one of the first things that I talk about when I meet new people who we have to do an intake, and we often talk about things from your past that have disrupted you that can create problems in your current present day. So I often talk about healing is not linear. It's not you go from path A to path B. I think my education and my story of how I even came to be a clinical social worker can show you that. And I see that in a lot of people. They have the experience where they're not, I got up today, I met with a guidance counselor in high school, I planned my entire life out, and it worked really well. Rarely do I see that. And then when I think I really discovered my purpose in the pandemic for two reasons. One, I had limited input from other sources because we were so isolated. And then the second thing was it was the first time in my career, and at that point, I had been in the social work field for almost 16 years. It was the first time that I ever felt like I was a necessary part of the team. A lot of times in social work, I felt like I was a nice to have, not a need to have. So it really made me think about my presence in on a team and my presence in the community. And there were times when I was the only person someone could talk to physically because our doctors were off the unit or they were on a virtual thing. And they had nursing staff, and but there was very few people that came in to sit together with someone. And I think at that point I really was like, I need to be more than just going through the motions, creating discharge plans, filling out paperwork. And I really pushed myself to be more of a counselor, more of a stepping in other people's roles. I'm sure as many people can attribute to, if you are a trauma survivor, it can be challenging to really embody another person's challenges. And I have learned to separate like being present for them versus be re-traumatized myself, which is something I had to learn a lot as a counselor. You don't realize how triggering listening to other people's traumas can be for you. I also didn't have any classes in graduate school on that at all. So that's something I want to let people know. One of my passions right now is supervising people to become independently licensed because there are so many things in graduate school that are left out. What do you do when you're re-traumatized? How do you show up in a therapy session for another person when you may be having experiences doing that? And I honestly do not think that you can be a counselor without experiencing some reaction within you. I think if you are that emotionally separated, you're probably not doing the best work for that person. So those are some of the things I've been working with. And then also, how do you set up private practice? How do you manage a business? Like I would like my supervisees to learn some of these things as they go on. So those are things where I'm working on creating my whole the things I want to do. And so when I think of trauma and we're separating like maybe this happened years ago and now you've been just set, like your system may be hijacked. And so you want to move on from this place. And what does that look like? What does life look like when you're rebuilding after a traumatic experience? I know for me, working in a smaller steps, not looking at my overall arching purpose, but looking at smaller steps, reevaluating the values that I carry. A lot of the values that I learned in my very chaotic childhood were not really values that I would want to embody now. And just accepting that I can move on from these things. When I was first out of the house and looking at creating a better life for myself, so one of my first areas explored Buddhist meditation. I went to several places and just sat. I sat in meditation. I sat in quiet and silence for a long time. At first, it was very challenging, but I remember one of the meditation retreats I went to in Joshua Tree, California, having an opportunity to sit was a whole week of silence. And then on my way from the event, from the retreat to the airport, one of the Buddhist nuns had driven me to the airport, and she gave me a lot of insight into how to rebuild after trauma. And really, she only said that this is not the only time that she really talked about time as a circular thing. And that I think was the first time I was probably 20 years old. And it was the first time that I thought about the trauma that I experienced, probably was also experienced by my mother or my father and their parents. So that was the first time when I saw trauma not as just this one-to-one event, but how it connected a lot of people in a very dysfunctional way. But we're all connected through these things and how it's shaped. And so another thing that I bring up, I am a Native American and so my credentials there are I'm an enrolled tribal member, fully enrolled tribal member of a federally recognized tribe. So the two things that when I get asked, like when I lived in Texas and they said, how much Indian are you? I'm a fully enrolled tribal member. Why do you look so white? I will say, if you look at, I'll just Europe, you do not expect the complexions and the characteristics of somebody from Italy to be exactly the same as somebody from Norway. And the indigenous tribes who were here did not look exactly like that nickelhead. So we did look quite different depending on where you lived. And I was raised in a Native American household. My Due to my age, because I'm 54, we didn't have powwow until I was late in grade school. Powwow was not something that we could do. It wasn't reinstated in the United States until the late 50s, I believe. And then it was small. And then the other thing, my tribe, I am from the Oglala Sioux Nation. We did and continue to do, but we did ghost dancing, which was to honor our ancestors and have them come forth. So at that time, ghost dancing was illegal after a wounded knee. And the first wounded knee in the 1890s when the United States Army massacred the tribe, including elders, women, and children at the end of December. Ghost dancing was outlawed. It's still considered dangerous practice, but more people do it. The other thing that was outlawed was the sun dance. So somebody asked what powwow is. Powwow is a time of celebration where we come together as tribes. The Sioux is a band of 7 tribes. They will come together, they dance, they play the drums, they vocalize. It's singing, but it's more vocalization, very similar to yodeling, but with a native spirit. We feast, we exchange, they traded goods. It's when you see the fancy dancers, the people with all the regalia, sequins, tassels, feathers, the headdresses, they will come out at that time. And that is part of how we connect with each other in different tribes. So I've attended powwow in several places, but growing up, I lived in Washington State, and it was mostly on Kitsap County that we were at the Kitsap County Fairgrounds. And one of the things that I remember is we always had Eskimo ice cream bars at powwow. And it wasn't until I was much later, I don't know, I was in my mid 20s, that I realized you could buy Eskimo ice cream bars in the grocery store. I thought that was only for powwow. And because our Alaskan family came down and that was a treat. So that was just as a side note. As a Native American living in a Native American household, attending these powwows, which are a spiritual and cultural practice, it was very much instilled in me that church in particular Lutheran and Catholic churches, which my relatives were stolen from the reservation to go to Catholic and Lutheran boarding schools, were off limits. We did not talk about any Christianity, nothing in our household. To the point when I was in high school and I'm studying for these SATs, there were themes in the books that I was reading about Christianity that I didn't get it at all. It was not something that I recognized. I didn't recognize the life of Christ, any of the stories, anything from the Old Testament. So that was something I had learned much later. And when I'm thinking of the interconnectedness, because I had learned more from we read a lot of folklore. There were a lot of oral stories, oral traditions came down. Some of my favorite stories that had a spiritual and religious impact for the Native communities were about the Iktomi, a spider god that helps the people and tricks. Iktomi often tricks Coyote. You guys may know about Coyote trickster stories. So Iktomi was really special to us. In fact, I still do not kill spiders today because they are the children of Iktomi. They're to be taken and put back outside. We don't squish them. So that was the building blocks of my creation stories. As I was preparing for this, I was really drawn to the story of Esther. And from my studies, the story of Esther in the Old Testament or the book of Esther that leads to Purim is a story in similar to the stories that I heard of Iktomi, and that they do not believe that this is a historical event that happened. These are mythology that helps to build celebration for a people. And I think about often the time in which she talks about her uncle says, maybe you were created for a time such as this. Maybe this is your purpose. So I'm hoping when you're thinking about moving to going on and thinking about what your purpose might be, you may not know. I didn't know. I think many people don't know. I still hope I have found my purpose in working with survivors, working with other people. But I also believe that my purpose he goes back to when the Buddhist nun told me that we are living in a spiral. So I really and truly believe from all of the things I've heard that my purpose now is to heal who I am. And part of that healing heals the family around me, heals the family before me, so that as we learn more about trauma, as we learn more about survival, as we learn more about genocide and the atrocities of our country, we currently have an understanding of why this could have occurred. So when I think about why were my parents so abusive, I now have knowledge to know that the parents before my grandparents lived through trauma. My great grandparents lived through trauma, and how that could impact their caring for me. And so, as I heal myself and gain knowledge, I do believe that goes back to my ancestors. And for that reason, I think I am here. I am one of the people that my ancestors prayed that I would come into being so that I can deliver this message to all peoples. And although in many Westerns and many movies, I see the Oglala Sioux being still today being portrayed as warriors. And I know we are warriors. But I think now we are becoming warriors for healing, warriors for solidarity, and warriors for we're still continuing to fight for the land. So the on when I think about all of those things, I think if you have any questions of why you're here, I would break that apart into smaller pieces. So some of the things I've been doing is a morning meditation. My morning meditation is usually very short. It mostly consists over coffee. So that I think really, what is my purpose of today? What are the things I do? I sit in silence. Sometimes I just look outside at the water, the light, and then I'll write down and jot things. I've also started about, I guess it'd be 10 years ago, I started quilting as a way to connect with my sister during a time that my brother-in-law was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And through the quilting and beading and crafting, I feel that helps as a moving meditation. It's very repetitive. It can be very boring, but it does help. And I have been working with people to develop creative outlets because healing is nonlinear. Trauma interrupts your ability to speak about it. Maybe you don't even remember all of it, but through, for me, through the repetitive motion of working with cloth, something physical, it helps for me to clear my mind. And I also know it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm inspired by other quilters, other fabric artists in the United States, such as the quilters of Gee's Bend, who used scraps and who used anything to recycle and create beautiful pieces of work. So I'm encouraging people to do that. I also found just through watercolor, it just the flow of watercolor, you don't really have to have a gallery piece at the end, but exploring color, exploring texture of the paper and paint helps. And then finally, I do some writing. So the writing also helps with creative expression. My writing is not always logical, so I'll write in part sentences and things, and it helps to build an outlet there and look back. And sometimes I have one or two words and other drawings or sketches on the pad. So that's something I'm offering starting in 2 weeks. I'm offering a morning meditation for at 7:30 Eastern time through Zoom. I think it's in the downloads that you can connect through that. And it's very short. It'll be scheduled for 30 minutes and it'll probably end in 15 because it's not a whole day thing. It's more to set up your day. And then at the other side of the day in the evening, I have done more of a wind down over the last 5 years. And I'm offering people to join for wind down on Thursday evenings at 8:30 Eastern. And that will be there. These are all free because they're through Zoom. And that will be, I've started doing this on Thursday because I take Friday through Sunday off and just a way to jot all the unknown things that I didn't get to, things that I wanted to get to, just put them all on paper. And then sometimes if there's been something that has come up over the week, I'll paint or write or sketch about it that maybe I don't have a lot of words for at the time. So I think those are in there. And I don't have a lot of, I know I have a 5 minutes or so. I don't have a lot of time left. If there's anything that I didn't answer, or if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer anything now.
My friend, because you're a sponsor, actually have a lot more time, but you're welcome to donate it back after some questions, or you can lead a small meditation. I'm also not sure about your offer, your links. We have a website only for you. So if you have time
Oh,
to grab links, that you're talking about? I would love to share that
Oh,
with
I
everyone.
didn't, at this time, I didn't include the links, but I can. So I can, let's see, review the,
If anyone has a question or comment for Michelle, you're welcome to unmute and say it or ask it. You're welcome to put it in the chat. Michelle, if you would like, you have time to, I don't want to put you on the spot is my only thing. If you
sure.
feel called, if it feels like something you're comfortable with, I think leading us in a meditation could be beautiful start to our day.
So I will do a short meditation and grounding experience. What I've done is wherever you're sitting, I tend to ask people to put their feet on the floor. Try to sit up tall and think that you have a string going from your bottom to the top of your head and out. And when you're comfortable, generally rest my hands on my lap, but you can rest your hands wherever. Sometimes you put hand on your belly, hand on your heart, and you can breathe in and feel your belly expanding and breathe out. Again, you'll breathe in and out. I like to hum sometimes as I'm breathing. So I'll breathe in and then hum out to feel that revibrate in my chest. So you breathe in. If you close your eyes, and if you're comfortable closing your eyes, or you look off soft focus, at this time, I just invite you to put aside any thoughts, any words that come up, and listen quietly to what is around you. As you continue to listen, I encourage you to think about anything that you can smell or touch. And then for the next 30 seconds, I invite you to spend time thinking of gratitude or thankfulness or forgiveness. Then, before we close, one of the things I like to do that is from powwow is really to just get up and jump around and shake out hands, stomp your feet, We're gonna, if you were one of my younger persons and you came to me because you had a diagnosis of ADHD, we would do our power move where we stomp our feet, sitting in the chair, stomp our feet. This, I do that for about 30 seconds because they're very energetic. And that helps to give a physical release. You should feel an emotional release after that calmness and that letting things out. I appreciate you all. I appreciate your time. So I thought I was talking until 10:45. Appreciate all your time. I will get those links to you all. But if you are interested, it's hello@beachcounselors.com. I'll definitely send you the links through that. And I appreciate you all today. I hope you have enjoy the rest of the summit and have an excellent morning.
Thank you, Michelle. It was so lovely. Yeah, I started the timer after I finished everything that I said, and I went over just a couple of minutes, but thank you. Almost always we have a speaker that goes over a little bit, or we need a little bit of a longer break, or things happen. So
It
the
does.
time back is beautiful. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to spotlight myself and then our next speaker. Thank you again, Michelle. I hope you enjoyed her talk as much as I did. I just beautiful insight and out. And as a therapist, I don't have a whole lot of other therapists that I'm comfortable referring to, but Michelle is someone I'm very comfortable to referring to. So I'm just so blessed to have her in my life.